And we are live. What's up, Mike? How's it going tonight?
Doing well. I love the new intro. Like that. Like I've been up since 5 a.m. So that woke me up. That was some. It's a really cool opening you got there. Very cool.
Appreciate that, man. Yeah, I worked pretty hard on that. I want to do something a little different for this show, kind of leave the old identity behind and start anew and just start, like the league did, start a little fresh.
Yeah. Who would have thought? Who would have thought if I'd have told you months ago that you were going to rename your show and it'd be called the UFL Insiders? I mean, you wouldn't have believed me. So it's pretty crazy that we've arrived at this point.
Yes, sir. The same goes for you. If you'd have told me last year you were writing for Sports Illustrated, I probably would have not believed you. So I'm excited for you, man. And congratulations.
Very strange. Yeah, I got to say, very strange. I've written for XFL Board since back in 2001, the original XFL. And shout out to Mark Nelson, Greg Parks, everybody on that team. Awesome site. A great message board. That's where I started. And, it was even though there's an open door policy, both at XFL, at UFL Board, and UFL News Hub. Shout out. These sites get dissed as fan sites, but I don't think people realize that the people who run these sites actually put their money in. They actually pay their writers, all of them. So that's like a big thing. They give a lot of people starts in this industry. People have gotten jobs in the leagues, starting out at these fan sites. People so funny that the people who make fun of these fan sites are fans themselves.
Yep.
Who have their own message boards and discords and all this kind of stuff. So shout out to Jay Noakes, who works for the San Antonio Brahmas. He started out at News Hub. And, so it's weird because it was hard leaving News Hub, the News Hub family, Hub Publishing. They're still doing great work there. Pat Ruffino, Sam, a lot of those guys there. Those are my boys. This is the Ruffino, by the way. That's an inside joke there between Pat and I. If he listens to this, he'll know what's up with that. But, there's the Sports Illustrated. I've been dealing with a lot of personal issues with my family and all that. So it's been kind of hard to dedicate myself to writing as much as I have in the past. Sports Illustrated, the division that reached out to me, they recruited me to join them. And so they have tremendous people there. Art Garcia wrote for the XFL, XFL.com in 2020. He's one of the lead editors, the lead dogs there at UFL and CFL Fan Nation for SI. Casey Sager, if that last name sounds familiar to you, she's doing wonderful work. She just great articles on the history of the USFL and XFL. She is the daughter of the legendary Bob Sager. If anybody knows who that is, the big broadcaster, charismatic guy, kind of innovator. Color. I can never dress like him. He was a tremendous dresser. So we've got a very good team over in SI, and so it's an interesting world we're in now. It's unfortunate what has happened with Sports Illustrated. It's a sign of the times. Print media, newspapers, magazines, they're going by the wayside. VHS, yep. DVD. We weren't affected in our division. I'm a paid independent contractor. I'm not part of the union. So that's kind of the story there. We weren't affected by it. We're part of the digital medium that's there. Anthony Miller's doing a tremendous job writing so many articles. I've written nearly 30 articles. It's hard with work life, personal life, everything else that I've got going on to dedicate myself to that level. But I've written nearly 30 articles in the month of January covering both the CFL and the UFL. And Anthony, I don't know how many articles he's written. He's written like 150 at least. I mean, he's nonstop. He's a machine. So and I think I wrote this, I'm not much for tweeting. I'm not the greatest follow on social media. So those who do follow me, that's great. When I announced the whole SI thing, and I gave a shout out to Mark Perry at Hub Publishing and thanking him for what he's done and how much money he's put into this and invested in it, and employed so many people. I said everybody who's in this space that covers these leagues is on my team. I'm on your team. I consider you guys the cool kids. So even though it turns out a lot of these so-called cool kids Some of them are not so cool. So a lot of a lot of negative. Thank goodness I don't frequent Reddits or Discords or any of this other stuff out there. I try to in the past. Shout out to XFL Reddit, CFL Reddit. They do good work there, but a lot of these groups are just unfortunately, finding people who are knowledgeable, have insight, who are fair, who aren't on that troll tip. Yep. It's very difficult. I go back to the mentions board days of xflboard.com. Another shout out to Greg Parks. Some of the conversations we've had there, and I had a few years back, were unbelievable. Like the most knowledgeable of fans were in these. So I became a writer for these sites covering these leagues because of the message board and because Mark Nelson asked me if I would be interested in covering the New York, New Jersey Hitmen because he appreciated what I was writing on the board. And then when XFL 2020 came back, I remembered Greg from the board. I said, hey, Greg, you should write about the XFL. And I got to tell you, there are very few people that can hold a candle to Greg Parks in this space. If you are not, you really need to bookmark that guy, read all his work. He's a teacher. He's got a teaching background. So he does his homework. He chronicled all the XFL players that were in the NFL this past season. He keeps track of all the roster moves. If you're a fan of the UFL now, I would suggest you go out of your way to go to UFLboard.com and search. Great. There's other people there too. I'm not trying to, but I'm just saying Greg's been doing this for a while. Greg's special in this space. So there's a lot of really good people there and that cover these leagues. And those are some of the cool kids. Some of you guys are just, I don't know. It is what it is. I wrote an article on Sports Illustrated about, and I got to get into this. I wrote an article Sports Illustrated because I called out all the people that ran with rumors as fact. And so basically, and then, there are guys doing memes of Graves and talking about how the USFL was taking over the XFL and they're going to have all 8 teams. It's one thing to talk about rumors, which I did. And because a lot of people within these leagues did not know what was going to happen right up until the 11th hour. Even the union itself was confused as to what's going to happen, what's going to be in, who's not going to be in, what teams are going to be in. So there were plenty of people that came to me and thought there would be 8 teams. They thought it would be 6 and 6, 7 and 5, all these different, an entire one single hub for all the teams with nobody playing in their markets. So all these, and there were coaches and players. And believe me, there's a player that's going to be on another podcast. Shout out to Matty Fresh that I've talked to and interacted with. And I talked to these players. Yeah, I talked to these players, and AJ McCarron's going to be out there, and he might drop some bombs. So get ready for those articles out there. So there's going to be some interesting stuff. So shout out to him. But there are players and executives in both leagues and employees that were unsure and that were, basically in my ear. So maybe should I have talked about rumors during a podcast? Probably not. But there's a difference between talking about rumors and reporting things as facts, because the problem was that people, and I called out people for doing this. The people that went ahead and reported that there were 8 USFL teams were going to be back, guaranteed. It's going to be 8 and 4. The people who did that, they gave a false sense of security to people who assumed that their employment was going to still be in place. So I wrote an article about the Generals at USFLnewshub.com. And I told in the article where they were listing their signings, it was one of their most latest transactions. I wrote about how there might not be a Generals next year. And so there are a lot of people on the Maulers, the Generals, on these teams that were hoping that, and when they heard that it's going to be 8 USFL teams, they're thinking, I'm secure, I'm safe, I'm going to have a job. And then what happened? They did not have a job. So it was irresponsible. And I had people on the Maulers, some tremendous coaches that were reaching out to me, and that have been communicating with me. And there's a lot of coaches that are trying to get back into the league. And so, it's unfortunate because even I communicated with a coach, I won't name who it was, but a coach on the Brahmas who asked me early on when the merger talks came out, hey, Mike, am I safe? And I said, dude, San Antonio's safe. You're going to be fine. I felt bad for saying that because San Antonio was safe. The Brahmas were going to be in 100%. The problem was, little did we know that Hines Ward was going to pass on a salary reduction. He was scheduled to make, again, I reported this, scheduled to make $600,000 this season. He passed on all the coaches that agreed on January 1st to the new terms or agreeing to a reduction in pay in their future when their contracts expired. Wade Phillips agreed to it, Anthony Beck, Reggie Barlow, etc.
Was there a specified amount for that? Or was it just...
They're pushing that forward. Well, all these coaches at the XFL side, their coaches have multi-year deals, so they're all in that six-figure range. Some guys are paid more than others. Bob Stoops, Wade Phillips. Hines Ward was scheduled to make $600K. When they told him that if you sign on, you had to sign new paperwork because their contracts now are seasonal. So it's January 1st until July 1st for these coaches. So when Hines Ward was told that you're going to have a reduction in salary in the future, he said, this is not what I agreed to. And who knows? I mean, he could eventually, I'm not saying this is going to happen now. Here I go, right? But this is speculation on my part, not confirmed. So anyhow, but it's possible he could consider litigation if he feels that there's a breach of contract. You know, it's possible. I'm not saying he will. I'm just saying it's possible. So, you know, he didn't agree to it. And then it just so happened that it helped out matters because in terms of Wade Phillips, because Wade was going to be out. Wade was going to be home, not coaching in the league if it wasn't for Hines Ward passing on the new agreement moving forward here. So, yeah. So, and then, I mean, that's something I reported and the details of that. And that was at XFLnewshub.com and a recent article I wrote at SI where I talked about how the league's cutting corners and how a lot of people who are working for the United Football League are taking a reduction in pay. And so this merger has happened because of finances on both sides of the coin. Like I know there's a lot of people that are like USFL loyalists and that feel like they were like shocked. Like, why would they do this merger? Why did they trim down their league? They were making tons of money. Wink, wink. Both sides have had issues raising funds. They both hired investment firms to raise hundreds of millions of dollars. Fox has been trying to raise money. They haven't raised a cent. The XFL side, Redbird Capital, I got the emails. They tried to raise $125 million to fund the 2023 season. They didn't raise a cent. They didn't get any investors to come along for the ride. So I wasn't surprised that both sides have merged. We all were hoping for 16 teams, 12 teams, you know, and we've got 8 because they're both looking to cut costs until fake it till you make it. So the end game goal, there are 2 end game goals. The one is not very realistic. The NFL is going to fund them. So the end game goal for them is to sell off these teams so they can have team owners take over to cover the cost of each individual team. That way player salaries can go up. You can expand the coaching staffs. So you can see with the new model here in the UFL, they've adopted the XFL side, Redbird side has adopted a lot of the USFL stuff. They've adopted the smaller active rosters of 42. They adopted the seasonal employees with the coaches, the limited staffs. I mean, I covered the generals, and they basically didn't have a special teams coordinator. One guy handles the field goal block team. One guy handles the return. They've got coaches multitasking. So hopefully that doesn't hurt the football product when you've got limited coaching staffs, limited game day rosters, only 42 players. So there's a lot of things that worry me about the quality of play this season. It's really cool. You know, I mean, this is what we're getting, right? It's easy for me to say, I don't cut the checks here, right? So, I mean, I think personally that this merger has bought both sides at least 2 more years, because I think if they had not merged, I think the USFL would have had 1 more season in them and the XFL would have had 1 more season, if that, and they would have closed up shop. So they're doing this. They're coming together. They figured we cannibalized each other's audience. Let's come together. Let's build this. Let's sell this. Let's use our reach on Fox and ESPN, ABC. And, for the time being, they're cutting corners. They're reducing salaries. There's a lot of players right now, Matthew. I got to tell you that veteran players, guys who are part of the XFL in 2023, and we might hear news break on this soon, that don't want to play in the league in 2024. They don't like the current setup. They don't like the elimination of win bonuses. They don't like being they don't want to agree to the union terms of the $1,600 monthly stipend. There's a lot of stuff that's going on behind the scenes. So, like, for example, we reported at Sports Illustrated that Max Borghi is not going to play the St. Louis Battlehawks. Now, the public comment is that Max Borghi is considering a new career. I think it has a little more to do with with him giving up playing football. It has a little more to do with the new setup and the lack of pay. Because a big factor in all this is win bonuses and the coverage players have in terms of housing and hotels. It's expensive in Texas. I had one player, I can't name who it is, but you can guess on this. They sent me in Arlington, was looking for housing, and they found like a what was it, like a trailer for like $1,600. Like, let me see if I can look it up here real quickly. Like it's like an RV kind of deal in Dallas. So
yeah, rent's crazy in Dallas itself for sure.
Yeah. Oh, it's really, yeah. Let me just pop it up here because I don't want to be inaccurate on this. So it is, just so I get this, it's a camper. It's $1,483 a month. It's an on-site rental on a North Texas ranch, 2 beds. It's a travel trailer kind of deal. And then there's another one where you got a delightful 1-bedroom travel trailer in Fort Worth, $1,766 a month. They're giving you a break. It used to be over $2,000, $2,006. So if you're getting a $1,600 monthly stipend, you're trying to make that work. Here's the thing: if you're a single guy, young guy, you can get creative. You can live with a few guys. You can try to work it out. If you're a guy who's got kids and stuff, you got a family, you don't want to be away from your family for 3 months, 4 months, all that kind of stuff. So I mean, it's tough. These players make sacrifices. Don't get me wrong. The trade-off is you get an opportunity to play pro football. That's huge. You get an opportunity to put out a game film. Last year, the USFL and XFL combined to have nearly 120 players that got signed on with NFL teams. So that's awesome. I mean, and the CFL had whatever it was, like 15. So there's a big difference in playing in the States versus playing in Canada. And I'm a CFL supporter. Sure. What you're playing in NFL, you're playing in an NFL style league, so you're going to get more opportunities to sign on with NFL teams and make it. And I believe there was about 40 or so players that finished the NFL season on NFL rosters that played both in the USFL and XFL in 2023. So there's a lot of different factors here that are involved in this season. I'm excited that it's taking place. This is what we got here. I also wrote an article that I feel like this is our last shot. Like, if you're looking for a viable entity to come along, you can't get much stronger than this in terms of exposure and backing. Not too many leagues. Major League Football's been trying to launch for like 5 years, and they were paying their players with like bags of chips and $50 bills and whatever. And they had they had so many issues with their jamborees and everything else. These leagues all talk a good game, but getting the exposure package of being on Fox and ABC and ESPN and all that, all the commercials we see during the NFC Championship, I think this is our last, unless the NFL does it. And I lived the NFL doing it, by the way. I lived in a world where Peter King was writing articles for Sports Illustrated where he said 10 ways to make the NFL not be boring. There was a time where the NFL was considered a boring league, believe it or not. And I remember the NFL starting the World League of American Football, and they had teams in Canada and across the world and in non-NFL markets, and it didn't work out. So maybe one day the NFL will attempt to start their own spring league, or maybe they'll fund the United Football League. But I think this is our last shot. If this doesn't work, Matthew, I don't know who's coming along behind this to try. I mean, there will be people who try, but I don't know if they'll have this kind of reach and power to get it done. So we'll see what happens.
Hey, guys, I know you're asking questions. I don't want to interrupt him, so I'm just letting him talk. We will get to questions towards the end, I promise, like we've been doing previous. Yeah, Mike, it's I figured whenever this happened, because it was so spur of the moment, so fast, that it was to survive financially. I mean, at the end of the day, we know that's what it's about. Look at any of the past, the history from these leagues, spring leagues or alternatives, and same stuff that goes on. I mean, the history kind of repeats itself on this. The money just isn't there sometimes for them, and unfortunately, without that money, those seasons
I've
are
said
not
this.
there.
I've said this a million times, Matthew, and I've written this a million times for several years now, especially since 2018 when the XFL made their way back, and I was writing about the AAF. People don't realize how expensive these leagues are to run. I mean, they are super expensive. So, I mean, it costs tens of millions of dollars for insurance, and that's why they're doing what they're doing with the Arlington hub, cutting costs with travel, the tax breaks they get in Texas. That's why these two leagues are putting together. They're kind of like fiscally responsible financial models. They're putting it together. And if you look at it, like the USFL side, the Fox side, it's like they're only paying for, I guess, for lack of a better term, 4 teams. The XFL side now, Redbird, is only financing 4 teams. So they went to 8. So the fact they didn't go to 16 tells you where they were at, from a revenue standpoint. And they both don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. They see the potential light at the end of the tunnel with them being together. So I'm not saying that it's going to work out for them or not, but we'll see. I mean, the quality of football is important. Them attracting, I wrote about this at SI2 during this month about how there's a reduction. Last year, a lot of people weren't too privy to this. Like AJ McCarron was making $200,000. Jordan Teamo was making 6 figures. Brett Hundley. There were quarterbacks. Now, Brett Hundley didn't really work out, but we know how good Jordan Teamo was as Offensive Player of the Year, effectively the MVP of the league when you get that honor. AJ McCarron had, who I thought maybe should have been the Offensive Player of the Year. That's neither here nor there. Those guys were making 6 figures. They're not making 6 figures. That's why, again, reported at SI by myself, that Jordan Teamo hasn't agreed to join the league. Now, hopefully he does, but it's a big step back from making 6 figures to agreeing to $55K with no win bonuses. Now, this union, which is now went from being the USFLPA to labeling itself the UFLPA, they're talking about Player of the Week bonus, so you get $1,000 if you win the MVP at the end of the season. You get a bonus, but that's a big difference from the bonuses they got. Like there were Defenders players last year that made a good chunk of change because they won 10 games, 9 in the regular season, 1 playoff. They went to the championship game and all that. The win bonuses were a big factor, and they provided added incentive. Quality of play is going to be important. The active roster side to me is a problem. Attracting quarterbacks. This is basically it. Like the UFL now, they're not going to compete against themselves. Before you had the XFL and USFL, they were competing against each other. So you could under the table, give a quarterback more money. But why would they pay an AJ McCarron $500K or $200K? Why would they pay him $200K now when where else are you going to go, AJ? So, and AJ has the money. He doesn't have to play in this league if he doesn't want to. He's playing the NFL. He's got the pension coming, all that kind of stuff. But there are other guys. Basically, what you're doing is you're putting yourself in a position where you're going to end up getting players that have no other options, that the NFL window is closed on them, and they're looking for an opportunity. You're not going to be able to attract the players. And we've seen, there's some veteran players you got veteran players like Josh Gordon and all that who tried and again, reported SI. Josh Gordon did not sign a letter of intent, is not going to be part of, unless he has all of a sudden a change of heart. He'd be doing it for the love of the game because, it's a lot of these guys, like in a situation like Josh Gordon, they got enough money in the bank. They don't really need to play for $55K. So It's part of the spring football world too. You get veterans who try the league for 1 year, give it one last shot, and then go, you know what, I'm out. So that's kind of the story there. But, I worry about quality of play. Hopefully the quality of play is good. I'm not knocking the players nor the coaches. I think the coaches, these coaching staffs are understaffed. I think that these guys have to multitask. The coaches that work in spring pro football work so hard. You got guys who coach like 3 or 4 positions at once. You got a coach like Ty Knott, who coached for the Seattle Sea Dragons last year, had the top special teams in the AAF as well. he was coaching wide receivers too. The Dragons had the best numbers any receiving core last year as well in the XFL. So, I mean, guys like that, they end up multitasking, wearing several different hats at once. And so these coaches have it real hard. The players in these leagues are very talented. So it's about how they, how you run the football operation. The directors of player personnel, the GMs, right? The Von Hutchins, all these guys, Mark Lillibridge, these guys are overwhelmed too. I mean, these guys have a very hard job. They don't have a scouting staff. They have to do it on their own. So you're asking a lot of these players and coaches and these GMs to put out quality. And then if you have limited salaries from a GM perspective, it makes it a little harder to recruit certain guys. You'd love to see like a Trace McSorley play for the Defenders in DC. That would be a nice fit. But, if you're not paying an enticing salary, you may not be able to reel those kind of guys in. We'll see what happens.
It all makes plenty of sense to me, and I'm curious to see how it plays out when the final rosters come out or the practice rosters come out. It'll be, I don't know, man. Talking about all this, and somebody made a point. Let me go back in the comments. So it was Brahma Babe. She's one of our contributors here. She said, Mike, do these factors you mentioned contribute to the schedule not coming out at mid-January as stated by the league, in your opinion?
I don't know. We're supposed to get the rules and the schedule soon. In regards to the schedule, they're still ironing out. I mean, it's no secret that they gonna end up playing with Houston at Rice Stadium. They did look at other options like Shell Energy, so I don't know what the delay is there. They have to lock down where Houston's going to be playing, get that done, and then release the team schedule as well as the TV schedule. I have access to the ratings. I get them from the network, so I can't wait to see how many big network games there are. There was a big factor last year. All the XFL games on big network television average over 1 million viewers, and then there was a big difference when they were on like FX or what have you. So I'm hoping for as many Fox and ABC games as possible during this. There is a delay in schedule. It's supposed to come out soon. I reached out to the league office. They're like, patience, Mike. But I know the rule. Let's see how they roll it out. Like you can't just do a random social media tweet or post about this stuff. There should be some pizzazz to how you release your TV schedule. There should be some pizzazz how you do your rules. Like have Dean Blandino and Mike Pereira together going over the rules, which, by the way, RIP XFL kickoff, which is kind of funny to me because the CFL is considering the XFL kickoff for safety reasons and all that, bringing the return back in. They're actually looking at it. The NFL has been considering it. I don't know where the NFL is going to land with it. I don't think the CFL will land with the XFL kickoff, but I find it fascinating that they're even considering it, right? So it's funny that the XFL won't be using the kickoff. I know there's a lot of traditionalists that don't like the XFL kickoff because it looks unorthodox. It's strange looking. There's like some strange rules attached to it, unique circumstances. So the USFL kickoff, it brings back the kickoff, and you're kicking off from like your own 20-yard line. So you're guaranteeing that the other team's going to have great field position on every drive. They start off in midfield. I wonder why they got 3 points. So, but you get the return. I love the kickoff return. It doesn't address the safety issue. So if we're sticking with as long as you keep the kickoff in, I don't care what the kickoff is. I would prefer the XFL kickoff because I feel like it addresses both, bringing the return back and addresses safety. So, there it is what it is. I understand. It's funny, like the Dallas Cowboys were practicing with Cavante Turpin using the XFL kickoff in practice during practices to limit contact. And then the CFL and the NFL are considering it. Now the UFL may not have that kickoff. So as far as the schedule goes, and I know sometimes to make a point, I go all the way around my back to touch my elbow. Sorry. but yeah, I think the Rice thing is holding up. Yeah, exactly. I'm flexible like that. I think the Rice thing is holding up that schedule a little bit. Like, again, here we go again with that stuff. Get it ironed out. You have plenty of time for this stuff. Get it ironed out. We went through this with Vegas last year. They looked at Bishop Gorman and all kinds of weird high school options. Just iron it out. Get the schedule out there because they've actually done real well in terms of advanced ticket sales which is surprising considering all the uncertainty that was surrounding the league. They stuck with the Roughnecks because of the simple fact that they had decent advanced ticket sales for that. So they kept that brand, even though they have gamblers, coaches, and players. So it's kind of strange how that all again, when I reported the 8 markets, I purposely didn't report gamblers because I knew that it was still in play for the Roughnecks. So hopefully, if this was this league has to do, they cut corners in so many ways, but and they have added time because they're starting off in March 30th rather than in February, right? But you have to just put out your schedule, put out your rules. You have to put out your schedule and start selling tickets. You have to set up your TV schedule, start promoting that, and do it the right way. Roll it out the correct way. Don't just do it like as a matter of fact, UFL PR press release. Oh, by the way, Destroying, who had 1 extra point attempt in college, is going to really have a legitimate shot to be the Brahmas kicker. Look, I give him all the credit in the world for being a social media maven and doing a great job with his videos. I never watched a single one of them, but for having all the followers that he has. But I mean, him being a kicker, I mean, hopefully that PR stunt works because that's what, hopefully it draws in some added fans or something. But
that's the goal. I mean, he's an athlete, so he may be able to do it seriously.
That 1 extra point in college was impressive. And so I know he was with my Argos. And he attempted a 19-yard field goal in Canada and was on the practice roster with the Argos a few years back. And he was at UCF and he looks like a good athlete and all that. But I mean, it is what it is. I know the XFL in 2020 had PFT commenter come out there and he kicked field goals with Hunter Niswander and all that stuff. And that was done as a gag. That was kind of fun, right? That wasn't like he's really coming in to be the kicker, right? So, but I mean, it is what I don't know. Like even still, like Destroying. Is he going to get to the regular season as a kicker? Like, are any of these practices? I guess you could put him on social media, but like what?
Mike G said he has never missed a kick in a professional game.
There's that, right? And nor have I. So I've never, nor have I. So I got that going for me. I can kick. I played football at Christopher Columbus High School. I was wide receiver and a gunner, played some DB. So I can kick a 40-yard field goal. So I know I can do it.
I know I've talked to quite a few kickers that are on the smaller end of leagues. And even at that position, them guys are just athletes. I mean, people can say, oh, they're kicking. Yeah, they'll hit you too. And seriously.
That's a hard job. Being a specialist is a hard job. You can't afford to you have to be perfect. Your technique has to be perfect every time out. And not every kicker gets 100%. We know this, right? Even Justin Tucker misses. But that's really hard. If you're just off a hair, and then you get the yips, you can kind of we've seen it where a kicker all of a sudden gets ice cold. I know Matt Amendola is in the league now. We'll see what happens with him. Maybe he's going to have to compete with a YouTuber, but I mean, it is what it is. And this league is looking for any attention it can get. So they see the level of views this guy has and subscribers. And they figure maybe that, but they tried that last year with him. That experiment that was horrible.
Yeah, boring.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm just too much of a traditionalist, but him on the sidelines, just stuttering left and right, not even yo. It just didn't work for me like that. I'm sorry. I'm all for trying something different and fun. And I don't see the value. You could, how about promoting your league more? How about actually concentrating on things that will make your football teams better? How about scouting, doing a better job of scouting players, and recruiting players to the league? Those things are more important to me.
Agreed, 100%. But who knows who knows what this is important to or what party, basically, at this point. We don't know. Let's see. We got a question here. We know that Vegas's venue had to manage other events occurring there, but with Rice, I don't understand what could be delaying them locking down a contract so long. Rice soccer doesn't play in spring, and their lacrosse team would have only had 2 weeks that conflict with the UFL season.
It's got to be money.
That's from KJ Disciple. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a very good job, KJ. Spot on.
Another
to
contributor.
me, yeah, I know that, like I said, I mentioned this. I don't know if it's been reported anywhere else. Sometimes I do this in my articles. I bury my own lead. I know that they were looking into Shell Energy, was where the Dynamo play. That's a little tough with these. That's a nice stadium. I love the Audi Field kind of stadiums, that vibe. But I think sometimes it's a little difficult to make an arrangement because of scheduling, because of sometimes having to, put down money for the upkeep of the field and all that kind of stuff. So I know the XFL in 2020 paid a lot for the at Audi Field to do that. So I got to think that they're trying to, knowing them, the way they kind of like cut corners with things. I think they're trying to see if they can get the best deal possible with Rice. I don't know what they're leveraging them. Why play around at this point? I mean, they did this last year and we had that disgrace at Cashman. So, I mean, they legitimately scouted Bishop Gorman and all that, and we're thinking about that. I know that's a high end for a high school field and all that. But, I mean, then we ended up with a situation where, like, we saw it. We saw how horrible thank God they didn't have any injuries there. It looked ugly. And then it had just so happened it rained that day too, which made it even funnier.
I'll never forget that. Never.
Yeah, if you like disasters, if you root for disasters, that was a good one. The only thing was, like, thank goodness it didn't happen, but that whole stand they had for the broadcast team,
shaking. Yeah,
they're shaking like that. Did not that was a disaster waiting to happen. So anyhow, but I do think, I honestly believe, because I haven't heard otherwise, they got to be at the 1 yard line by now. Like but I honestly believe that they're trying to see if they can. I don't know what kind of sweetheart deal you can get out of that. I don't know why they're messing with it. Hurry up with it. Get your schedule out there. Start selling tickets. You guys are doing a good job, like somewhat, advanced ticket sales and all that. I know that it was funny because Seattle was one of the top ticket sellers for advanced ticket sales, and then no longer with us. Rest in peace, Sea Dragons.
Yeah, that's crazy when you think about that.
Yeah, so I mean, so it is what it is. DC's doing really well. We know DC's surpassed already season ticket sales from a year ago, so they're doing really well there, and they're going to have packed houses and awesome crowds all the time. Same thing in St. Louis. But these other markets, you need to do a better job. Houston underwhelmed last year. The Roughnecks were a disappointment at the box office. They did not live up to their 2020 team, and they just didn't do as well. Arlington was a disappointment. They spent the whole time in the hub, and they didn't do very well. Like, I mean, it wasn't awful, whatever, 10, 11 grand, that's fine. But you felt like they could have done much better in Texas than they did. San Antonio got off to a hot start, and then the team wasn't very good. And then their attendance waned as the season went along. So if you want to sell tickets and all this stuff, you got to start getting ahead of things. Like, Russ Brandon. See, I get in trouble. I don't care. So Russ, I'm critical. Russ Brandon, all these guys in the league, they need to do a better job. You need to you start moving.
I agree. And we talked about this in August when you came on. Was it August? I mean, It was the same topic. And we've had all these changes occur, but we still haven't fixed this one big, small issue over here,
Yeah, well, like look, we're here because I know it was reported by Forbes that the XFL lost only $60 million. Anybody who was in the industry was shocked to hear that was only 60 because of how expensive these leagues are, operating 8 teams, et cetera, et cetera. You can do the math there, dividing 60 by 8. But I know that they were over $100 million that they lost last season. So here's why we're doing the merger, right? So, and I understand that there are certain limitations that are taking place this year in order for them to be functional and get to the next phase. But you get what you put in.
Agreed.
So it is what it is.
We had another comment. There was no promotion of teams in local markets at all last year. And I mean, there was very little, but there was some, but very little, if that. And speaking from personal experience and covering, I 100% can say the same things. What I noticed is it was poor planning sometimes. There would be back-to-back weekly games with events in Houston that people probably aren't going to miss on a Saturday night. Don't have the game that night. Switch locations. Do something to combat that. Make people want to come to you.
Yeah, and it's telling, Matthew, like what were the two best markets in all of spring pro football last year? And this includes the USFL. It's St. Louis and DC. And it's telling this new ownership group with the XFL, now UFL, they didn't earn that, St. Louis and DC. That was by default. They inherited that. So the Battlehawks, we knew St. Louis was going to come out for the Battlehawks. It was good that they were good. We knew DC was going to support the Defenders. They did in 2020. They had rowdy crowds back then. I mean, this ownership group didn't even know a beer snake existed when opening week came. They had to like, oh boy, what's going on? And what is this beer snake stuff? Well, don't buy a league if you don't know anything about it.
Got to learn the culture, man. If you want to fit in, that's just the way it is.
I mean, Rock and Danny, they say all these great things, but I mean, like, do your homework.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of glad we started with the bad, and we're going to get to some good. But
I tend to focus on a lot of that stuff because
these are important, and people are asking.
People don't like the fanboys don't like it. The fanboys don't like it.
This show isn't made for fanboys. This is made for fans.
I'm sorry. I'm like, the fanboys don't like it, but if you don't like it, me saying that, proof is in the pudding, right? Here we are. We got the two leagues merged. They cut their leagues in half to come together.
Oh, boy. I know the schedule is going to help out a lot. So as soon as we get that, we'll have a lot more happy people. But every week we wait, people are planning events, vacations, concerts, whatever. Springtime is a time where a lot of people do things, and they have that established before, especially in today's economy, the way you have to. So schedule is crucial. 100%.
Yeah, and I think there's so much upside if we're going to get positive. There's so much upside with Birmingham, with Memphis, with Michigan. They can do so. I mean, I got some of the attendance figures for some of those games. It's not pretty. And then people asked me, please do not release it. So I didn't do it, right? If I wanted to be a jerk and I was biased, I could have put 175 near a Stars game in Michigan, right? So if I wanted to, right? So, and they really need to, I think that schedule is important. I'm really interested in the TV schedule. I'm fast. I think you can artificially bring the numbers up if you have more games in prime time because people are home.
Yep.
And if you have more games on network television. So I think those are big factors for the rate. I think you'll see the ratings if they do it correctly. I think you'll see the ratings go up. If there are more games on network television rather than like the XFL 2 a.m. games on FX.
Or the ESPN Plus app.
Oh, yeah, or the ESPN Plus app, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's man, it's tough for me because I've been waiting on this schedule for so long. I think you're gonna see major improvement. I think you're gonna see improvement on the Birmingham, the Memphis, and the Michigan side. I mean, you got nowhere to go but up. Birmingham did somewhat respectable. Michigan improved a little bit towards the end of the year. The Memphis market was okay. And I think there's a lot of smoke right now that Memphis could be the first team to be sold to an owner. So we'll see. That would be great. I mean, that could be the first domino to fall. You need more than one owner, by the way, but it helps. It definitely helps. So I think Fox got into this because they think with the promotional vehicle, the whole Rock thing, Danny, all this stuff, they were disappointed. And to Moose's credit, to Darryl Johnson, who's now, the head of football for the United Football League, he was very public about how disappointed he was in the attendance in Birmingham and the other markets. And one of the main reasons this merger is occurring is because they feel like they can really boost their attendance and do better. Not have a dead product where you're putting in fake crowd noise and all that. Have actual invested fans of your games like DC had, like St. Louis had. Yeah, see, that's what I was going to ask you next. I mean, should we assume that TV rating is what we're chasing here in opposed to fan attendance, kind of like the USFL did?
Yeah, I think the USFL, the ratings went down in year 2 because anybody who sampled the product, it looked the same as the year prior. So like for diehards like me who watches every game multiple times, it doesn't matter, right? You can play in a parking lot. I'll watch the game. But for the big thing these leagues need to do is to attract some level of mainstream football fans to watch their league, to sample, to give it a shot. And ratings are important, but they also And I'm amazed with like Jerry Cardinal because he talked a good game about this stuff, but they haven't really worked at it. And that's creating multiple revenue streams, being able to, I hate to put it this way, profit off the fan base when they're not at games, to make money off fans when they're not at games. That's where the NFL and other successful sports leagues succeed, is that people are constant customers and consumers of the product year in, year out. It's not just the 3 hours during the game. So you need to find a way to monetize your fan base. And that's through gambling. That's through fantasy football. That's through merchandising. I mean, the XFL, I couldn't believe how awful they were last year. They bragged about the Under Armour deal, and then they didn't even release their jerseys until late in the year. And when they did, they were like, it was a mortgage payment for a Vegas Vipers jersey that
and you had only two
and
numbers.
you can only do two numbers.
That was what got me.
Mortgage payment for two numbers. And so, and you know, this ish, I'm sorry, man. I'm like, you know, it's like you killed your own revenue streams. You wonder why you lost $100 million. So they're not, and what it appears to me, from what I can see, is they're not going to have an app that utilizes fantasy and gambling to profit that way. They're not going to be invested in the fantasy element. They're doing a bare bones operation all the way around, and they're hoping whatever they get by default. So I don't know. We'll see if this league's around past 2025. I hope so.
Rick 8-Bit, he's another contributor. He said town halls will help this year, hopefully. And I agree. It almost looks like 2020 again.
Yeah, and you can see, like in St. Louis, credit to Anthony Becht and the people of St. Louis. They did a good job of connecting people locally. And DC, Reggie Barlow. The town halls should help. I like that I've seen that in the last few days. The Mike Nolans and all these different people that are associated with the league, head coaches, are meeting up with fans and all that. Plant seeds. I love it. That's cool, right? So you got to start somewhere. So that is a positive, and that'll help with attendance for sure. For sure.
Yes, sir. So we basically hit some of our schedule without even doing it. So that worked out well.
Yeah. And Rick 8-Bit had a great tweet where he predicted the week 1 schedule. I liked it, commented on it. He did a very nice job. I like the whole week 1 USFL versus XFL. I think that's one of the things that I know some people did. I mean, it depends on your opinion. Some people feel like maybe the USFL, XFL conference is maybe not the way to go. But I like the fact that this league is embracing that rivalry and still keeping those two brands alive, even if it's just in conference name. I know that in perfect world, it'd be geographic and all that kind of stuff. But I think the week 1 element of, you know, the bragging rights, Renegades and Stallions, you know, and the potential of, although one of the matchups I think Rick 8-Bit had was Brahmas versus Roughnecks, which technically is USFL versus XFL now because the Roughnecks are a USFL team. But I like the idea of all those teams playing with each other. And I think that's going to be one of the fun elements for the people who've been following these leagues. How do the Stallions stack up to the Defenders? How do they stack up to the XFL teams? How, you know, and vice versa, and all the way around.
Trying to find that post, man. Got lost.
Yeah, it's if I'm not mistaken, I'm assuming it was Rick, because Rick puts out. Yeah, he puts out very good stuff. I love the whole 8-bit concept. I think that's very cool. I'm
very retro, cool.
I'm a super Tecmo Bowl guy still to this day, or Tecmo Super Bowl, however you want to put that. So those old video games, I love that stuff. So
hey, if you ever want to play, shoot him a message. He'll help you out, get it all lined out. But it's pretty fun.
That's
Emulators.
Cool. That's cool.
Yeah, he's got a very unique talent, and so I'm glad we got him on the team for sure.
I'd like to see one of those games you got on the screen on ABC in a perfect world. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. I see 2 Fox games there. That does make sense. One of the games being in prime time would be beneficial. I think from a rating standpoint, maybe throw that DC game or something like that in prime time, or the St. Louis game when prime time would be fun, like to cap off week 1.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I think that would be some good stuff. I bring up a lot of the negatives and stuff that I'm like have trepidation and issues with, but the football aspect will be fun for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. That's going to be the best part. We'll actually get to celebrate at the point the football actually begins. I can't wait to actually do shows on games. I'm so excited. I can't wait.
It's going to be fun, right?
So what do you think about the drafts? Let's talk about that. Just your overall opinion. What do you think before we even do anything else?
The transparency wasn't great. Again, I like the idea of like letting the fan base know who's in the draft pool. Instead of like, I reported that, we knew the guys who didn't sign letters of intent, like the Josh Gordons, the Eric King, they weren't going to be drafted. But then there's like a gray area there, where you don't know which players are in the league and which are not, which have passed on playing in the league. So, and then that first dispersal draft, that was a mess, because they could have for whatever reason, they decided internally that, because there's so many players that are going to be left out, not getting drafted, let's not publicize this. But they could have made a bigger deal of it, did it live online. They decided not to. I had GMs, coaches, players asking me not to release information. Don't tip picks. Don't do this. So, I tried to honor that best as I could. I can't say that other people didn't reach out to the SI people there. So, so with picks, but it was kind of, you could have done a better job. It's kind of a cool concept. It's not a foreign concept. It's been done before in other leagues, dispersal draft. It's unfortunate that we're going from 16 teams to 8. Could have been built up and presented better. It was unique. I think the second layer of it, I was fascinated by it, because I like to see because both leagues were available then. And initially it was USFL team picked from the USFL side, XFL, even though there was confusion there from the league office. They weren't sure where the Roughnecks were going to be picked and not. So they gave me some faulty info and then had to apologize afterwards, which was funny. They weren't even sure which pool the Roughnecks players are going to be in, or if one side could pick from 5 teams or whatever. Anyhow.
So I thought, right now you're talking about phase 2, right? That's
what you're talking about, correct? Phase 2. Yeah. Phase 2 is better than phase 1. At least they presented the picks. And I like the fact that there were teams that were, now you got to see a USFL team specifically take some players from the XFL that they liked, their GMs liked and said, oh yeah, I saw him on film. I got to get him on my roster. You saw DC picking up players like that from the USFL side. So there were a lot of good players that weren't selected. I'm baffled why Jeff Badette wasn't drafted by anyone. I'm surprised a CFL team, 4.240 guys don't grow on trees. And so, and Jeff Badette was one of the better. Once he was finally healthy in an offense that suited him, he was really starring for Vegas. Unfortunately, he got hurt. So he got off to a hot start last season. So I'm surprised he wasn't in the league. I'm surprised at quarterback. Now, this could be something. Now, I know Jeff Badette wanted to get drafted. I'm still puzzled by the whole DeAndre Johnson thing with the Generals. I think the defenders, I'm underwhelmed by DeAndre Francois as their quarterback, as one of their quarterback choices there. Better hope he's not their answer to Jordan Teamu. He's lucky to even be in the league from a talent perspective. I think I would have definitely gone towards a Steven Montez, who went to the CFL, or a DeAndre Johnson, who I think is a perfect fit. Now, maybe DeAndre doesn't want to play in the league. I don't know that. Maybe he's looking into other options or what have you, but he's too talented to not be on one of these rosters. So there are aspects of the dispersal draft that I found fascinating. I just think it was poorly laid out and poorly promoted, and it could have been done so much better. It could have been a lot more fun.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole leaking.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Matthew. It's as fun as it can be, because I understand a little bit of the somber side of it, because a lot of players, we're talking about the league went from 800 players to 2 leagues to now only 400, whatever it is for camp now, 600, I guess 75 per team. But they didn't want to celebrate the fun aspect of all these teams picking and plucking players that they like from teams that have dissolved, right? But I get that part of it. It's kind of somber, all these players out of work, but I think they could have done a better job of hyping up the players and hyping up the process, with the understanding that, certain teams are gone, no longer with us, 5 of them, whatever it is.
Yeah, to me, it seems tough to make picks as well when all the rules aren't released. Like, your teams are kind of structured around what you think, and it definitely
Yeah,
would
and
change
then
depending on your rules.
yeah, and it's like a little bit shady. Like, oh, wait a minute, okay. So then we had that little controversy there where there was a trade that happened after the XFL season, and where that changed draft positioning because during one of the, I guess it was the rookie rights draft, or one of those drafts, there was a trade that took place on the clock between, I believe it was like the Brahmas and the Renegades, where the Renegades got the first pick because they made a deal. So there's not enough transparency there to let people know like why Arlington has the first pick, that kind of deal, right? So it confuses your fan base and it makes you think like, what is this closed door BS going on? You know,
exactly.
it's like, wait a minute, wink, wink. You know, so you know, yeah, sure, they made a trade 4 months ago. So anyway, anyhow, it's they could do a better job with that, but that hasn't been their strong suit to promote the players in their league.
DeMarcus said they may have thought that making a show of people losing their jobs was a bit distasteful.
That's definitely correct, DeMarcus. I know that for a fact because when I reached out to the league and I expressed my concern, that was one of the main reasons they said was that they didn't want to, especially in that first go round. The second go round, they released results, but they treaded carefully with it. And I respect that. I totally get it. I just feel like if you're going to have a draft, you treat it like a draft, you know, and don't wait like 4 or 5 days after the fact, because the information got out there anyway of who got selected. Immediately.
Yeah.
Players were telling it. Players were blowing it up. Everybody was blowing it up. So there was no getting around the fact that certain guys weren't going to be selected.
Got some more names here from Royce. Royce said Baudet, Johnny Dixon, Brian Williams, etc. Will they land somewhere after the initial roster cuts happen?
You would hope so, but like, you know, I know these teams are still adding players, and we see the press releases that are going out there. It's basically the players that were selected during the dispersal draft are protected, officially putting pen to paper to commit for the season. Those players you mentioned, Brian Hill, not Brian Williams. Be nice to see Brian Hill back with the Battlehawks. I know he spent some time with the Niners during the season. He could be back. He was a good all-around player for St. Louis last season. I do see that very interesting signing today, officially released by the Battlehawks, replacement for Borgie, Max Borgie, is Wayne Gallman. They signed a running back, so that's a nice pickup by them. But I'd like to see Brian Hill back in the league, but that surprises me. I can't quite figure that one out. That's one of those that's just one of those deals where I don't know. It can't be a character thing because Jeff Baudet is not a bad guy at all. And so I don't know. I'm not in those buildings, right? But I haven't heard anything negative about him. So that's kind of like surprising to me that he's not. And he showed a lot when he was on the field last year. I know it's more important to have a guy like D Stroing in the league because he has 1-for-1 on extra points in college. But I mean, that's impressive. But I get it. You need 3 kickers in camp, but you know, to battle it out with no preseason games. But Jeff Baudet should be on a roster. It's ridiculous that he's not.
Now let me ask you this, and strictly, I mean, speculation. If you don't remember, I mean, he released some pretty vital info back when all the leaks were dropping. Could it have something to do with that incident?
It's petty if it does. I mean, Mark Thompson, good Lord. The running back for the now Roughnecks. He's not the greatest Roughnecks running back ever. James Butler is. No, but anyhow, but yeah, Mark Thompson, a lot of these players came out with and were public about information and all that. And they were trying, and you got to remember, there were so many people that were asking them, DMing them, wanting to know. So many players and coaches were in the dark during this whole process. So they're happy that some information, even though there was a lot of false info that got out there, and it's through nobody's fault. Like Neil Stratton is a tremendous football guy. He communicates with so many players and agents. He also had information there out there about, you know, info from people, from agents and all that were not accurate, right? Because so I mean, you know, with the 6-6, Balzer I think had information there. So if Baudet's punished for that reason, the league's upset at him. I mean, that's very petty. That's very petty. But yeah, the kickers, go with the guy who's got one extra point in college.
Hey, before I ban this guy, I just want to call him out. It's the resident troll is here, Mike. What's up, Duck? I'm glad that you stopped by the show. You're always welcome. But right now, I'm sorry, adults are speaking. You have to take that back over to another show. Sorry.
It's funny. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of.
I saw the comment. The comment made me laugh.
I'm gonna address it. I mean, I didn't mind one, but two, it never. He's just gonna hop on a burner and keep doing it with a different account.
It's all good. I mean, you look. If you like trolling, and if that's what you like to do, then go for it. I mean, like it makes you happy. The comment did make me laugh. So
it made me laugh as well. I'm not gonna lie. That's what I say.
It's funny. It's funny. But but it's just, but that's part of the troll game. The troll game is to you're not really supposed to be rooted in fact or logic and all that. You're supposed to just say stuff that's out there, that's nuts, just to mess with somebody.
I was down for that character until he started being on their show, and they have a show that they do on Mondays. It's like, all right, dude, now you got to kind of be serious. It's not going to do much for you. Ducky.
I gotta tell you, there's a lot of shows out there that
I can't keep up either, Mike.
They're not on my radar. There's so many. There's very few that I actually listen to. You get it 1 minute in. There's some groups out there, that just put something out of value, like some knowledge, some insight.
I understand.
Oh, or be funny. Uncircumcised peen is funny. That is kind of funny. So I will give you that one.
The only reason I kicked him is I'm not commenting 25 times.
I do have European heritage, so the uncircumcised thing is always a possibility. It's always a possibility.
Oh my Lord! Oh my.
Anyhow, moving on.
So we got the draft out of the way. We had the 3 rounds of the draft, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Personally, watching that, I kind of wish they would have simplified that. It was very confusing at certain degrees. And unless you're plugged in like us, you were kind of left wondering what the hell is going on and when's my team pick? And that's kind of what I gathered from the general public's understanding of it. So I wish it had been just a little more simpler.
Transparency, that's the key. That's how, providing information. That's how you get people invested in what you're doing. It's you don't act like it's like a chore, oh yeah, we got to put out a press release. Here it is. Here's a list. We wrote it down on white paper. Here it is. Here's a couple names. Make it seem more special, interesting, Well,
the Twitter
build up anticipation.
The second round, it was pretty good, and we had a lot of people making custom graphics for players, and I thought that was awesome because there's so many different kinds, but majority of them were fan driven. XFL or UFL, excuse me, they did make a few, but they weren't they weren't the ones I saw mainly. I saw a lot of fan art or media art, whatever you want to call it.
Well, awesome. Yeah. You got all these guys, cool. Good on them. Shout out to James Larson. He went out there and he was posting a lot of the pics and all that. And he did a good job with that. And that there are fans out there that wanted it. Right. So, I mean, they wanted the information there in the middle of the night, figure it out. And I was messaging with James back and forth. I really shouldn't. Maybe I shouldn't blow up that spot. But there was some interesting stuff with a couple of Generals players. He kind of knew where they were headed. The players themselves, what was funny was the players themselves didn't know where they were going. I had one player, you can fill in the blank on this one. But I had one player who was hoping to go to DC and was hoping that he wasn't picked during the dispersal draft. And then he ended up with Memphis. You can guess who this is. And he was, he ended up with Memphis, and he was like, "Oh, I'm happy I'm with the Showboats for sure." But he was kind of hoping that he would get bypassed during the first phase so he can go. Some players are interested in certain teams, especially if they are close to where they lived and all that. So you can do the guesswork at home. But there were cool fans out there. If it's not for these fans that are dedicated, it's not for like the guys like there, like the James Larsons, all these guys who are trying to provide info for fans. They're trying to go out there and do that. You're in the dark. You're in guess mode. Like I said, during that period, I had players and agents, a couple GMs who said, Mike, don't give out the info. So, it's like the way it is.
KJ said, when people don't know and can't easily discover it, diminishes interest and erodes faithful following. Bottom line. That's 100% accurate.
That's 1,000,000%. KJ's coming up with a lot of awesome points. Yeah, it's the truth. There's no need to follow up on that. That's as accurate as it's spot on. You have dedicated fans, right? And when your dedicated fans are like, even they're like, you know what? Screw it. How are you going to attract outside fans into this? You got to make a big deal. You got to build up anticipation. You got to like get the word out, get attention on your players and your product. You got to treat it like it's a big deal, not like it's an afterthought. Let's get this over with. That's not a good way to promote a league.
Nope. It just makes you think that, if it's not important to them, why is it supposed to be important to us?
100%. 100%.
Jude said, also rosters are quite confusing. Have to search 15 different websites and decipher whether they're still on the team. I'm totally agreeing with you. And that's why I have not done any serious coverage of players, because it's hard to find. I was trying to find coaching changes before we got on just to talk about those. And you really only see them on Twitter, the major ones, but otherwise there's not much information out to know.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. We're in the year 2024. Get with it. Like, post the rosters, have them readily available. That should be the easiest thing to look up for fans. I think we're going to get at some point, hopefully, the league releasing their full coaching staffs. Just showing you, even though they're going to be minimal, at least releasing that. We're still seeing changes there. Wade Phillips is still looking to add coaches to his defensive staff. Might end up being his own defensive coordinator. Brian Stewart left. Seems like Middle Tennessee State has a couple of different XFL coaches now. They got a couple different roughnecks there on that staff. It's cool under Derek Mason's staff. But hopefully they release those coaching staffs. We could see some changes before camp arrives. Camp's coming February 24th. So.
Oh, Jackie, what's up? She said hi. Jackie is a host of Horns Forward podcast, and they cover the Brahmas exclusively. Pretty good show. Just want to give her flowers, as my friend said the other night. Man, what do you think about, in terms of the free agent pickups? We saw a lot of different things go on. You've seen some players get waived and others picked up. Do you feel like some of this was already kind of premeditated? Did they already have their ideas of who we were picking up as free agents before actually going into the draft?
They're still recruiting right now. There's a phase of this where each one of these teams are still trying to recruit players that were on practice squads during the NFL season who didn't sign futures deals. They're still trying to recruit. It's hard for me to believe that DC is going to war with what they got currently in that quarterback room. I saw that Troy Williams signed with Memphis. I think Troy Williams is a better quarterback than DeAndre Francois. I would have preferred him in Fred Keis's offense. But I think these teams are not done yet. I think until we get – last season we saw this. The numbers escaping me, but I want to say over 24 players played in the XFL that will finish the season on NFL rosters, on practice squads, even some that signed futures deals. You got Brandon Smith, wide receiver for the Defenders, Michael Bandy. That's pretty crazy with Michael Bandy this year. He was signed and released off of Denver Broncos practice squad at least 7 or 8 times during the entire season. He finished the season with a futures deal, was with the Chargers, all that. So I think these teams are still recruiting. I think the Battlehawks are still recruiting. I think the Defenders are still recruiting. We know how good Potter is over there. Zachary Potter with the Birmingham Stallions and bringing in talent. I think we could see some key free agent signings as we get closer to camp. Sometimes you're settling for guys. There are guys on your list that 1 through 5 that you would love to add. They say no, they pass. They end up signing with an NFL team or practice squad, a futures contract, whatever. And then you end up going to 6 through 10. So, but I think these teams are going to still add players as we go along here. Trace McSorley or somebody like that would be interesting for the Defenders. I'm just keep throwing that name out there. I don't know if you'd want to play look, you're not going to play in the NFL unless everybody gets hurt. So I think he'd be a nice fit for Fred Kais. It would be nice to see Jordan come back, like Jordan Tiamo come back. He had the best year of his professional career last season with DC. He was like a perfect fit in that offense. Be great if he does come back. I know they're holding out hope that he does decide to return to the league. It would be cool if he did, but if not, they need to start entertaining other options.
Yes, sir.
Better than Francois.
I think we're going to see some shifts in teams, no doubt. There's going to be a lot of changes occur. And then players that we think supposed to stay and be there, I bet you will be dropped as well in that shuffle.
Yeah, we're talking. They got to pare down those rosters significantly from 70. There's only so many spots remaining. We're going to see a good number. You're going to start seeing, I think we saw Corey Coleman. You're going to see a good number of veteran guys that will be listed as released or don't opt to not play in the league. That might be because of the new setup. That might be because the win bonuses, all that stuff. They may decide, you know what, it's just not worth it. I'm not going to, so guys will move on, like the Max Borges of the world. I mean, wouldn't shock me if like a Akeem Butler, maybe an A.J. McCarron doesn't play in the league. We'll see.
So come camp, they have to have 75 people on rosters. Once the season begins, they have to have 50. And then they'll have 42 active players to play with on game days and with a third quarterback. So that doesn't include in the 42.
Right.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is cool. In a perfect world, the rosters would be larger on game
I agree.
They make do what they make do. So they condensing everything. That's part of their strategy. I don't know what the payment is for players, if everybody's even going to agree to a union. We still don't know that completely at the moment. But, like the active players get paid a hell of a lot more under the union setup. I think they get $5,500 a week. And if you're inactive, you get $2,500 a week. So that's a big difference, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, and injuries happen. So, a lot of those inactive guys will eventually end up getting, active game checks. We'll see how it all goes. But I think people are dismissing the possibility of these teams adding key players as we go further along, as we get towards the end of February.
But who do you think right now, one free agent that's left that's going to get swooped up? What's one on your mind? Somebody that you can't shake off.
Well, I was really excited about the possibility, and I don't know if he's going to play with the league because I don't think he signed a letter of intent. It's unfortunate, but he's one of my favorite players dating back from college. I was really hoping that Tavon Austin would join the league. He's one of those veterans I'd like to see if he still has it. Trace McSorley, I keep mentioning him over and over. I'd like to see him in the league. I think there's certain offenses he can fit in. Those are just a couple of guys off the top of my head. I'd have to sit down and look at all the available free agents and get a list together. But I'd like to see some of these intriguing quarterbacks. I mean, like I wrote an article about Josh Rosen, whatever it was last year. I think that ship has sailed. He's got enough money in his bank account. He doesn't want to do it. And there's no guarantee that he would even be good. But I think a guy like a Josh Rosen should have considered playing in the either USFL or the XFL. It would have been good for him. Change the narrative, change the story arc for his career. Instead, he goes down as like one of the biggest busts of all time who bragged about making all NFL teams pay. So those kind of guys, like the quarterbacks, intrigue me. The quality to play is only going to be as good as your quarterback position. So right now I'm a little bit concerned. There's some teams that are way ahead of others, but if you got no A.J. McCarron in the league, if you got no Jordan Te'amo in the league, no Alex McGough, who's tremendous last year, if you don't have like some of these young guys are going to have to step up, and bring up their level of play, and maybe one or two will emerge that we're not expecting at the moment, But I think the league, if you're not paying quarterbacks above $55K, your scouting is going to have to be very good. You're going to have to seek out the players and bring in players who been overlooked and deserve an opportunity. There's some decent quarterbacks that have been released recently too. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. After that Super Bowl ends, I figured a lot of changes will start occurring.
And I'm hopeful that we see a lot of those athletes slide down, not to take spots, but just to improve the game in total, in my opinion.
Well, they've condensed it now. So in theory, rather than 16 teams in this space, you've got 8. So the quality of offensive lines should be better in theory. But I wonder about, they'll have some time to be cohesive units before the season starts. But I wonder a little bit about the quarterback position, the quality of play. That's the biggest key to any league. There's some guys that are going to have to step up.
Yep. That's for sure. I think, thinking off the top of my head, there's probably 2 to 3 teams that have starters, and that's being nice.
But you think if there's no AJ, there's no Jordan Teamo, and there's no Alex Magoo. Those are 3 of the very best quarterbacks last season in spring pro football. Now, Case Cookis is back. That's awesome. The Memphis team looks a little scary. So there won't be a 4-6 team making the playoffs. Like, I don't think Memphis is going to be a 4-win team based on that roster. Anyhow, we'll see how that all goes. But I think we need somebody to step up or somebody new to come in to become a star. These leagues, you're only going to be as interested. If the quarterback play is bad, it's going to be a quick click from people who are watching these leagues.
Mm-hmm. A lot of shit to talk about it. Giving them a lot of room on that bone to just go at it and bash it some more.
Yeah.
So I got another question. Let's roll into the questions now. I think we're going to get out of here before 2 hours, man. That's good for us. We never do that.
Especially with my big mouth, So
hey, it's cool, man. I let you talk, do your thing. It's why it works out. This show is for discussion. This isn't you listen to me and I'll lead. No, you talk all you want, man. This is a discussion show, so it works out very well. So DeMarcus said, any word on what they did with Anthony Blevins? Did they just pay him out or what?
That's to be determined. I wish I knew more about that situation. I would assume that he's paid out. I feel bad. He left a standing. This is a guy who left a standing NFL job. I'm hoping he latches on with another staff. I haven't heard anything from his camp. Trying to reach out close. I feel bad. The guy left, like, he had an NFL. He was interviewing for special teams coordinator jobs, and he had a position with the Giants. It wasn't like he was fired. So, as some people assume that he would get one of the jobs, but that's the unfortunate thing about this merger. Is that, like, so many good coaches were left on the wayside. And I was actually looking forward to seeing how he does, because I like the idea, the premise of a special teams coordinator getting a head coaching role. It's rare. And I think because special teams coaches are involved in every aspect of the team, clock management, they deal with offensive and defensive players. They coach them up. I think more special teams coordinators deserve that opportunity. So it would have been fascinating to see how he does. I don't know. I've been asking around. I would assume if he did sign pen to paper and he had contract and all that, they're going to pay. They're either going to pay him while he's at home, or they're going to have to buy him out. And that's what was going to end up happening. And there could have been a legal action involved if Wade Phillips didn't get one of these gigs, because he wasn't going to get it until Hines Ward passed. So there could be some, like, litigations and some legal stuff coming down the pike. With a lot of these situations, because I that's something that not a lot of people are talking about, is how Anthony Blevins got the short end of the stick with this whole crazy merger.
Yeah, it seems like anytime a company merges with another entity or becomes another entity, there's always those people. They just get the short end of the stick, and that happens with normal companies. I'm curious, because I know in, like, normal daily life, a company can do a reduction of force and basically fire you legally in some states. I'm curious,
Sure.
Why they don't go that approach with this? It must be some legal stuff in that state that they're in that I'm not familiar with. But I know even me personally, I've had companies restructure and they fire you, but they fire you legally.
Yeah, they always find a way. When it comes to screwing over employees, the big boys always find a way. It's like the bosses know what they're doing.
All right, let's move on to another question. Jude, if we see this league succeed in the next few years, could we see some of the older teams come back?
I'm surprised they didn't sell it as such, because I remember I was told when they were paring down to 8 teams that they were going to do the Tampa Bay Bandits message, where we're putting these teams on pause, but we'll revisit in the future, revisit them in the future. I really hope so. Like, this league does not, one of the things that affects the ratings is they don't have a Northeast presence. They don't have a presence in certain markets, right? They have Texas and all that, but they're not in New York or New Jersey, right? So I'm hoping like the Generals, they need that tri-state area presence. I'm hoping they actually play in there, because they didn't mean anything when they were playing in Ohio or whatever. So they didn't mean anything to the market. So I'm hoping that that some of these teams, I could see them coming back. I'm personally like rooting. Maybe it's just my because I'm born and raised in New York, my bias from there. I'm a Generals fan from the 80s. I'd like to see the Generals like legitimately come back. I think some of these teams could be brought back, but like, we got to get to the point where this league is profitable, where they can expand. It would have been, you see, they didn't make that promise. They could have said, we're putting these teams on pause, but next year we'll be bringing some of them back. And that would have been like, whoa, but they can't make that promise and not deliver upon it. So for now, they're 8. I know Russ Brandon was interviewed on St. Louis radio. I think I can't remember the name of the show now, so please forgive me. Maybe Randy Carricker or something, Brooke Grimsley, I think. He mentioned the possibility of expansion because he was asked about it. Everybody always brings up expansion. So when it comes to these things, so you would think that they would go to some of these markets that were already established. The thing is, with the USFL side, even though I'm waving the flag for the Generals, they never played in their market, not for 4 decades. So was there really that big of an attachment? Did people even notice that the Generals were around? Same thing with the Maulers, et cetera, in their specific markets. So I'd like to see, because I like the brands that were established, and I'd like to see a couple of these teams be, we'll see, Seattle and all that. But I think the league's it's for sure. But I think the league might decide on different markets. And there's no disrespect. I like Seattle, but I think the league needs to go to markets that have that like STL or DC vibe, where they really want, like, an Oakland, right? Like, that's been shortchanged in the NFL game, and that you need a little bit of that West Coast flavor too. That would be nice if they branched out. Hopefully they get to that point, but first things first, they got to figure out a way to go from surviving to thriving, and to start creating revenue sources and to sell their league. Just simply merging and doing commercials is not going to be enough. We'll see.
Agreed.
I hope it is.
I've said it 1,000 times, and you got to get out in those communities and make a name for yourself. No matter what you're doing, it's the community is what's going to support that team at the end of the day. And you see that in those cities. And like you said, it happened in St. Louis. They don't have to do much, but have a team and make it something worth supporting, and boom, there they are, ready to roll.
Yeah, and it's just great because they went to. It was funny with the XFL in 2020. They went to 2 markets that were like, the Washington, that whole side of thing with Dan Snyder and all the issues there. The Defenders struck a nerve in a market where, and then of course St. Louis, they got shortchanged by the NFL, so they were ready to embrace a pro football team and make a statement. So yes, I think you need to choose markets where there's really like a craving for a pro football team, where they really want a pro football team. They want to back it. They want to prove that their market deserves one. And so we'll see how that all goes. Maybe we'll have one of the recycled teams at some point. But I have a feeling that if they do expand, they might be looking at new blood, new markets.
Makes sense. It really does in certain degrees. Plus, people burned aren't going to keep getting burned. They will just.
I kept hearing Canton, Ohio was going to be a part of this merger from people within the league, like people who weren't the tippy top, because of the Russ Brandons, Eric Shanks, all them. They knew where they were headed all the time, but people kept mentioning Ohio. I love the Ohio market for football, whether that be Columbus or what have you. I think the USFL dropped the ball not having a team named after an Ohio, and playing in that market rather than. So maybe that stadium's great. So, and the size and all that backdrop, I think it's perfect for spring pro football. So maybe they reconsider that as well. we'll see what happens down the road.
I like it. I like it a lot. All right, let's roll on. A couple more questions, and we're going to hop off, man. I appreciate your time. It's been almost an hour and a half, so thank you.
Thanks, Matthew. I'm going to try to do that one day, like that funny, I don't know what it is. Like, I know I got the uncircumcised thing going on, but I'm gonna need to do the skeptical. Yeah, I love the angle you have. It's just so hilarious.
I put it in the corner, and then you just set it up right there.
It's like perfect.
It's to keep the angle of getting everything. I like this. I like getting all the stuff in the background, because what I found when I'm listening to podcasts, sometimes I get bored of what the person's saying or doing, and if I can look and see things that will keep my attention, I keep listening. And so that's one of my concepts on it.
That's cool.
Yeah, I don't want to be like everybody else either. So that's kind of another thing, is I'm all about being different. And
you look like you're skeptical of the individual you're talking to. It's like just the angle of your head. It's something that one of the best guys in the space, Pat Ruffino, mentioned to me, and I can't unsee it now. It looks like you're like,
wait till the beard gets longer.
Yeah. Oh, now we're moving.
All right, let's roll on to some questions. So Football Forever said, any idea where the championship game might be played if it's a neutral site again? ?
For the longest time, everybody keeps mentioning St. Louis, right?
Yep.
And that was like the original idea for last season, but then they chose San Antonio instead. So the assumption is St. Louis. a neutral site game would be fun, like in Canton, and I wouldn't rule it out. That possibility. It's not a bad move, but the thing is, like, how well are you? Like last year with the XFL championship game, what I thought was very cool was there were fans from each fan base that actually traveled to San Antonio. Of course, you had the DC fans at the game because their team was in there, but there were actually Guardians fans, rest in peace, and all that at that game. So if you do have the Battlehawk site, the Dome, St. Louis, as the neutral site game for the UFL championship, do Battlehawks fans show up if their team's not in it? Forget about it. They'll sell the thing out if their team's playing for a championship, right? But if their team is not, if it's like whatever, Stallions and Renegades or whatever the hell, they might show up still, but not to the extent if their own team was playing there. I think St. Louis makes the most sense. If it's a neutral site like a Canton, Ohio, you could pick a neutral site that maybe has no direct connection to the league, but you would only do that if you have plans on potentially going into that market in the future.
Yeah.
So that would be the only reason to do that. But Canton would be cool, but I think St. Louis is the best way to go.
I agree on that. I mean, it's one of the better stadiums as well. I like San Antonio, and stadium wise, in my opinion,
sure.
It was really nice. They had a lot of room. There was a ton of space. I mean, I've been to 3 St. Louis games in the 2020 season, and it was completely packed, and there was no space. So hopefully they open up that top row and make the room a little extra. But yeah, either way, it'll be good. And if they do it, they can do it outside, can't they? I mean, you probably wouldn't want to because it's going to be hot as balls that time of year.
Right. Yeah, I think you'd like to avoid bad weather if you can. I mean, in this case, bad weather would be, you could get rain, right? But bad weather would be like 108-degree weather.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So, yeah, you'd like to avoid that if you can. So, that limits your options. I guess Michigan, St. Louis, San Antonio. But I would think STL is the way to go on this one. I think, and then even though the league's not allowed to say it, if you're in the office, you're rooting for the Battlehawks to get to that point.
Caca. All right, let's go with one more question, Mike. Then I'm gonna let you hop on off, man. Let me find a good one. I got to do it, Mike.
Go for
like he said, why does Mike Mitchell look like a Ninja Turtle who got cut from the team?
Leonardo.
I'm just kidding. I had to.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
The
Ninja Turtles are awesome. The Ninja Turtles are awesome. I love those old movies.
Nothing pisses trolls off more than laughing at it. It's okay.
Yeah, it's funny. Like you can be funny, just like people. You can't take a troll serious. That's the thing. Like ever. Yep. If a troll is always, if you trolls stay trolling. So that I make that mistake sometimes because you try to like, you want to get past the asshole layer and find the human behind it. And like, maybe it's like a cool football fan who knows stuff. And then you find out, nah, it's just an asshole. You know? Yeah. So it's like, because I really like, I like I said, anybody who supports these leagues and promotes them and is into them, because I'm an advocate for them, right? Same. And so anybody, like I said, you may not like me for some nonsensical reason, something you made up in your own brain that has nothing to do with reality. You may have no receipts whatsoever to like support anything, but if you're supporting these leagues, that's the most important thing, because these leagues don't, we're inside this bubble, right? But like, got to tell you, like a lot of the mainstream football fans don't know that these leagues exist, and they don't care, and they don't think they're important. And you'll see the term minor league. And so you need as many fans as possible supporting these leagues. It's just unfortunate that there's like I hate to say this. I get in trouble for this. I get in trouble with my SI article, but I had to call people out for running with rumors as fact rather than talking about them, for reporting them as fact.
That's something I can't stand personally.
Right. Don't run with rumors as fact. So, but my big thing is, unfortunately, like, and it's in every community, but there's a lot of aspects in this community that suck. And so you hold your nose. I can't listen to a lot of these shows. I can't read a lot of these articles. It's just, there's not a lot of people bringing much to the table.
Exactly.
There's not a lot of Pat Ruffinos, Greg Parks. There need more of those kind of guys in this space. Anthony Millers, need more of those guys.
Agreed.
And so and then if you're an outsider looking in and you see these groups and you read their opinions, and then it's like, oh, it doesn't look like, oh, I don't want to go in that. I don't want to go in that room. I don't want to go hang out. I don't want to embrace this product. It doesn't seem cool. It doesn't seem interesting. So, so it's like, so you just, it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. But I know that's you come off like a jerk for saying it, but it's like, because it shouldn't be policing this thing. It's not, it's not my business to do so.
Exactly.
But so it is what it is. But, and just, we got to be better. Right. So like, hopefully all around, and hopefully the people that are out there continue to support these leagues, buy tickets, get merch, continue to promote these players. You hate whenever I see mainstream fans crap on these players or coaches, I get so upset. I have to resist hitting send. So if you continue to be an advocate for a league, even if you're misinformed.
Agreed. 100%. And that's why I kind of started this originally, was because I got tired of the bull crap. I mean, it was hard to find real things, and I latched on to guys like you and Pat. I mean, before I was interacting with Pat, and I'd say friends with Pat, like I wanted to message him. I wanted to talk to him just to pick his brain about things. And it's pretty cool how when you come in this community and you provide that positivity and the network and this dedication. I mean,
there's some guys
respect you for it,
Yeah. Awesome. And there's some guys out there, like I'm not mentioning, that I notice your work, Nicholas Thorne. There are some guys out there that are doing nice work, man. They do their research, they do their homework, they pay attention. It's not like oh boy, I'll get in trouble for this, but he followed me. Or it's not an RJ Young situation where you put an all-league team out there and forget to put an offensive lineman. It's like one of those deals. I did an all USFL team, and I went ahead like I'm crazy. Like I DVR all the games. I watch them multiple times. And then I had players reach out to me. Of course, players are upset when they're not included, right? And then And then, so sometimes you get some of that, right? It's kind of hard. I made like a more ridiculous all USFL team where I had like, honorable mention list was like freaking huge. It's like 50, 60 names. Cause I know these guys, these players who play in the league. And this is the problem with fanboys is the fanboys go out of their way. I'm not going to mention here. I'll get in trouble again. Mention names here, but there are some players right now that are getting publicity that, played like one season at a community college, and they're, guys are just going out of their way to be friends with players that they'll amp them up, hype them up. But the players that play in these leagues, they're so appreciative.
Oh yeah.
Of when you give them, and these are guys who played at Power 5 schools, all that stuff, but you quickly are forgotten. And once you leave college, only 1.9% of all college football players make the National Football League. So only 1.9%. So even all those great players you see in Georgia, there's only a fraction of those Georgia players are going to make it to the NFL. So it's cool, and it's cool when these players get their recognition and they get the attention they deserve. There are some players in the league that are just ridiculously good, like Darius Shepard for the Battlehawks who's coming back to them. To me, he may not be on an NFL roster, but he's an NFL player. So the NFL may not, they may not roster him, but I'm sorry, he's an NFL player. So I've seen enough. So there are players out there like that deserve recognition, deserve write-ups, that deserve to be talked about and publicized. And I'm glad all these fan sites exist out here, and the fanboys are going all in to promote players. So that's cool.
Yeah, they do that as well. As long as it's not toxic, I think any talking point's a good point. And when it comes to this stuff, because it just generates the word, and that's kind of what I've told everybody on my team, and as well as people that I partner up with. It's like, dude, if you do good, cool. You bring me with you on an accident. It's not your work is my work. We're doing the same thing. It's the same topic. I mean, so if you can go do better, go do it. And it helps every one of us in this community more and more. And I've really tried to preach that, but you know how it goes. Some people are just so tribal. They've got to be hooked up with a certain clique of way of thinking.
Yeah. So it is crazy. We should all be on the same side on this because our side is very small.
Exactly.
Like, comparatively speaking, our side is very small.
Yep.
There's not a lot of cool. I wish there was more Rick 8-Bits or Ken Gills or all these guys that are out there. So it's we need more of them.
Hey, that's what we're here for, man. That's what I try to do. So hopefully it works and we get some good stuff going. All right, last thing I got for you, Mike. Brian W. He said, got to call Mike out on Casey's dad. Laugh out loud. It's the legendary Craig Sager.
Craig Sager. Oh my God.
Musician Bob Seger.
Oh, what a brain lock. Damn. Boy, did I. It's funny when it came out of my mouth and I said it, I said, that doesn't sound right. And I just went along. Oh my goodness. Casey's going to kill me. I'm so sorry. I really apologize. Craig Sager, not Bob Sager. I don't know why I went there.
It's an easy name to remember. That's probably.
Oh, yeah. It's just like, I guess I had both Sagers in my brain, but I know when it came out, I was like, that doesn't sound right. What did I? And I just went along. I just kept going. So thanks, Brian. Thanks for pointing it out. I feel like such a damn fool. That's why we got to tape these things. No more live stuff.
Hey, the live's a lot more fun, dude. We don't have the interactions we have without
That's true. Oh, the stuff off the air sometimes is more entertaining than the stuff that's on the air because it's all the stuff I'm not allowed to say on air. So anyhow, but good Lord. And I've been up since 5 o'clock in the morning too, so I can't use that excuse. Craig Sager, legendary Craig Sager. Jesus.
Yeah, Rick 8-Bit said it's that 5:30 wake up.
No. Yeah, it's almost 5:30 now because of my big mouth. So just yapping. Like I said, I go around my back to touch my elbow.
All right, last comment. XFL Mike G, he's the editor-in-chief of the podcast. He said, during the merger, I was hoping we'd get twice the experts. Instead, we got twice the tribes. Or he didn't say twice, but I will say twice.
Well, what I thought would be fun about this, Mike, and it's a very good point, but tribalism, it's always part of it. You got like, no matter what field you're in, WWE, AEW, the wrestling stuff, there's a tribalism there. But I thought during the fun part about all this is I don't mind the trash talking. Like if the Stallions beat the Renegades like 47-7. I don't mind like whoever's like a USFL loyalist or whatever, if you're waving that flag. If you're saying, told you, that kind of thing. I've already got the Stallions picked to win the championship and the UFL championship. So, I mean, they're 2 years running. But I don't mind that kind of tribalism, that kind of trash talking. That might be fun. Like if all of a sudden, like the Renegades killed the Stallions in the opener or the XFL team sweep the USFL in week 1, there's going to be a good number of like XFL fans out there that go, told you the XFL is a better league than the USFL. These guys don't know what they're coming for. I told you. So, I mean, like there's going to, so that kind of trash talking, I don't mind because we get that all the time in the NFL and in pro sports. The weird tribalism when you got a Discord with like 37 Yahoos or, I mean, come on, man. Like that's like, just like, it's just like pathetic. So, and then you got shows out there that are like, doing World League of American Football stuff, and they changed the name of their podcast like 5 or 6 times, and then you listen to it for 5 minutes, and the guys who are supposed to give you World League of American Football facts are just botching everything left and right. They don't even get their information correctly. Oof. I'm sorry if I tell the truth when I write articles, if that upsets you, but I never reported rumors as fact. But unfortunately, you change your podcast title every 5 minutes because you're hoping somebody will eventually notice you. If your first name is Fran, it's not going to work out for you. They're just going to assume it's a cooking show with some lady.
All right, it's time to go. You must have some good coffee over there.
No, some strong one. The shovel's out. The shovel's out. I killed the XFL during this, the UFL, and everybody else in between. Hey, man, I'm a straight shooter.
Well, man, I appreciate you coming on today. It's always a pleasure when you come to the show, and you're always welcome. Me and many, many others look for you and your news and your approach to the way these things are covered. So appreciate you. All the respect in the world for me, man. Seriously.
Hey, heroes in a half shell. Turtle power. I don't know if anybody remembers that theme song, but
I remember. Those are some of my favorite movies as a kid. But anyway, man.
Team Leonardo. All right. Thank you, Matthew, for having me on. I gotta get to sleep, but as soon as I get to my phone, that's gonna keep me up for a little while there. And then I got editors that are probably gonna ask me to write some stuff, and then I got AJ McCarron might be dropping some bombs on the other show, so we'll see.
I appreciate you greatly, Mike. Man, seriously.
Thank you for having me.
Always check out Matty Fresh's show. Did that drop today?
That should be dropping right about now.
Cool.
Yeah, Matty's. There could be some, we'll see what happens, but there could be some truth bombs that are dropped on that show. Hopefully, Battlehawks fans are not upset after they hear some of that stuff. But hey, when you're a player, you have to address whatever concerns you have, right?
Exactly.
So, and then somebody with a voice like AJ's, you can be heard. So check out Matty's show. Matty does some good work there. I don't know about his real name is Fresh. The last name is Fresh, though. It's highly unlikely. At least you have a regular last name, Tyler.
Right. Maddie's a cool guy, dude. You just got.
I love Maddie. I love Maddie. I've been on his show.
Dude,
I'm teasing. I'm totally teasing.
I know.
I was on the phone with him yesterday, so it's just the whole Fresh stuff. It just reminds me of like the '90s rappers.
Anyway. I mean, that's what it's for. That's what it's modeled after.
That's completely what it's for. So, all righty, man.
Hey, man, I appreciate you. I got all your stuff going. I'll stick it in the notes. Anything you want to say before you hop off?
No, but thanks for the support. Anybody who's out there who supports this concept and the people who cover it, I appreciate it. And thanks. Thank you, Matthew.
I like it, man. Thank you. Next time we'll get you on. Hopefully we'll have real UFL stuff to discuss, such as players and actual people that are on teams and practices, and that'll be really cool. So
we got some cool stuff coming up. The rules, it's how they roll it out, but we're gonna get the rules, we're gonna get the schedule. There'll be new players that join the league, so things will start to ramp up with more news as we go along here.
Well, I appreciate you, Mike, dude. Take it easy. Till next time.
Thank you, Matthew.
Yes, sir. Have a great day or
You
night. All right. Wrapping it up. Appreciate Mike coming on. Always a pleasure having him as a guest. I enjoy talking to him. I wish we had more time to talk off air, honestly, because just to pick his brain and discuss some things with him would be really cool. I know at the championship game, I had the opportunity to sit by Anthony Miller, and it was an awesome time just discussing things with him and hearing his point of views when it came to the game of football. And then plus seeing the Renegades win, he was a big fan of that, so it was all cool. Guys, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for watching. This is the new show, UFL Insiders Podcast. It should be great. We're going to keep on dishing out some content. Keep in mind the AFN interview series is rolling too. Basically, if I have guests or a personality that I want to interview, then they'll be on that AFN interview series. Otherwise, you'll see all the UFL and UFL-based content stuck to this series here. It should all work out well. Check out the AFN interview series if you haven't. Short interviews. I'm trying to get different walks of life all the way around, so we'll see what happens. It's all football related, though, so any guest has something to do with football, whether it's a player, coach, media, whatever. They're there. The Alternative Football Network is rolling. We have the website going, have a large crew now, a large team. So everybody that's listened or a part of that team, appreciate you greatly. Look forward to seeing your contributions and what you do. We had our first official article dropped last night. RJ, the Brahma Bulletin, wrote about the San Antonio Gunslingers. So check that out. It's a good little preview. Gives you a little idea of what's going on in that league. Appreciate everybody, whether you're a part of the team or you're a partner. We have many partners as well. So thank you. If they're on the website, they're either part of the team or a partner. And regardless, we're all going to support each other and make this thing good. Always a pleasure, guys. I hope that I can keep providing you good content and just like not being dry. My thing is I'm trying not to do just what everyone else is doing, really trying to get out and get the word out and do some original content. Thanks to the UFL for letting me cover the league, and thank you to the UFL board as always. Appreciate you, UFL board. I share a lot of their articles. They show us off on their website and do some things as well on our end. So thank you, UFL board. Appreciate you greatly, greatly, greatly. And thanks to the UFL. I appreciate you as well. It's good. I mean, we're official media entities in the UFL now with the AFN, so should be some big things, good things coming. But regardless, thank you for watching. Keep it clean. Don't be toxic. I mean, you saw what we do with the haters tonight. I mean, I'm not going to get mad. We're going to laugh at them. Our shows aren't here to provide clout or to make us look big or cool or to give us a position of power. What we do is all from the heart, and we provide content. And I do the podcast. That's my thing. But now we have all these other avenues of content that can be prepared. So, and there's a lot of different individuals involved now. I think I'm wanting to say like 14 or 15. So it's really awesome. AFN has taken off, and I'm telling you, we're going to do some big things. So appreciate everyone along the way. Seriously. Check us out. I didn't schedule next week's show yet. It'll be on Facebook and all the socials once I do. I'm working on a guest. Should have a good guest. I just got to make sure our times are working out. And I don't want to say it until it's for sure, So just check for that. Thursday next week, the 8th, I will have Chiron Rogers on. He's a AFL athlete. That should be a good conversation as well. So check that out. And that's on the AFN interview series, not the UFL Insiders. That's it for me. I'm out. Take it easy. Be good. Be safe. Don't do drugs unless they're the good kind. Take it easy, guys. It's always real. I enjoy it greatly. Seriously.
Go hard, go home, go home, go hard, go hard, go home, go hard, go hard, go home, go hard, go hard, go home, touchdown like an end zone. When the circle turn to my home, can't get me out of my zone. Go hard, go home.